season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. Or media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out.
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Coming in hot with that new mic there.
Yeah.
Doing pretty good. Trying to get all these levels set up. Hello, everybody. It is OutDrank The Coverage Monday night happy hour. Feels like we've got like 9 of these in a row because we almost basically do, because we did our original one 2 weeks ago. Then last week we did a basically just an OutDrank The Coverage baseball happy hour. We're doing this happy hour, and then we're going to do one Monday to recap all of the draft. Oh, and what are we doing Thursday there, intern Noe?
Live draft show.
Live draft show. We did it last year, and that was like the first time that we'd actually ever done anything really well, no, I think we did one playoff show live on YouTube, and we got like 20 views or something. And it was the first, one of the first videos we put on the website when we moved over. And then we came up with the idea to do a live draft kind of late. We didn't really even promote it. Didn't buy any. I think I might have bought one Facebook ad for it.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking up at one point, and it's about halfway through the first round, and we're pretty sauced, and we've got like Brett and them on, and we're all arguing. And I look up there in the corner, and it tells you how many you have when you're viewing, and we had like 1,900 people, and it was like, oh crap.
Yeah. That was a good draft. That was a good time. I'm looking forward to this Thursday.
I am too, because I think because we're more, we've got more we're doing. We're going to start an hour ahead and kind of catch up with all the NFL news we haven't talked about over the last 3 weeks. And we're not going to really talk a ton of NFL news as far as on the field. We'll talk a little bit about some stuff off the field, past and present. And so I like that what we're going to do, because we're going to do that, and then in the draft we're going to have highlights of players. We have our same thing we did last year with what each team's weaknesses, strengths are, what they're looking for, what their last couple of drafts look like, and all that. And it's going to be fun. We're going to have guests on. We're going to have Brett again. We're going to have Ryan Fox. He's going to join us for a couple segments and give us his views on some stuff. And I also just think that the draft in of itself this year is going to be a little bit crazier. Last year's draft was pretty tame.
Yeah, it was pretty tame. I'm thinking this year is going to be a little bit more interesting just because of some of the good quarterback and receiver prospects. There are 3 teams that are not even drafting in the first round this year, but I could see at least one of them trying to work their way back in. And I've already heard today that the Patriots are already shopping their number 3 pick, so that's going to be pretty interesting.
I wonder if that's true, I wonder what they're thinking then, because I thought quarterback was going to be pretty darn high on their list.
I don't know if I told you on the show or in person, but my theory was that they need more than just a quarterback. Obviously, they need someone. They need a future there at that position. But
yeah,
they with Jeremiah and his new leadership, I really think he needs more talent. And shopping that number 3 overall pick will allow him to be able to get 2 to 3 draft picks instead of, the one. I mean, they still need line help. So you get a good young prospect there. They might be great, or they'll turn it to David Carr. And David Carr was a good quarterback coming out. The Houston Texans made a great choice in picking him number 1 overall in 2002.
Yep.
But
just bad luck.
Bad luck.
I have to ask you though. And we said we weren't going to talk a lot of NFL, but hey, this is what we do. The reports came out, and I'm really surprised this wasn't talked about more. We're going to talk about Tom Brady here in a bit about something else that was kind of funny that we noticed today. Netflix is doing a roast of Tom Brady, and we'll talk about that. Well, here, you know what? I'll go ahead and just show it while we're talking about him. We'll show the. Let me see. Is this it? We'll show the trailer. Hang on, let me get this ready. This is this hard hitting stuff you can find here on our Monday Night Happy Hours. All right, so here we go. We gotta unmute it.
The Arena. The roast of Tom Brady, live on Netflix. No helmets, no mercy, no Brady rule.
No fucking problem.
The greatest roast of all time.
All right, so I'm just gonna say this. Looking at that, I cannot believe that that's the man that took the NFL for 15 years and absolutely dominated. It just blows my mind the more and more I see him out of his uniform and stuff. But anyway, there was also, he literally said earlier this week, or was it end of last week, hey, I haven't really completely ruled out maybe possibly coming back. Hang on. I know this is a long-winded way to get around because we did the show, but I'm asking you this. Is there a chance that New England and him, that's what's about to happen? And that might be why they're looking to trade down, get a bunch of picks, get a bunch of right-away starters?
You asked me this a long time ago, and I said, yeah, just because I think the atmosphere for Brady will be more appealing. Mm-hmm. I think one of the many reasons why he left New England was because of the culture there at the time. I think he was okay with it when they were winning, but like 2019, for example, they did not win their division because of him per se or their prolific offense. They just started not having talent anymore. Yeah, they had an elite defense that carried them to an 8-0 start.
Yep.
So I don't really think. That was enough for him to just leave. He still has a desire to win, and he won. His first year with Tampa, second year won the division. It was a good 3-year run for Tampa. I said that I think if he goes to a team, as much as I think he'd be fine with going to New England, well, at least I would think the Patriots would be fine with him coming in. I really think that the Patriots are okay with Jacoby Brissett for at least 1 year while they try to figure out the pieces they do need and don't need. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a long project for the Patriots, and I think Mayo's given a lot of slack. I think Kraft wants to build a new winner. I think he wants to prove it and stick it to Belichick that he can win without him.
Well, that was kind of my whole point about Brady coming back, because it would be a kick enough. And also, I will say this: I don't think Brady has hate for Belichick at all. I don't think I don't think it's that bad. I think they just it's an arrangement that worked for so long together that eventually you just tire of each other. But it would be the greatest end of all ends is if he went back to New England and took a team that would have been lesser than last year's Belichick and took them to the Super Bowl, or took them to at least even the AFC title game. And then you start thinking, okay, well, hell, Brady, you took them to the AFC title game this year. Why don't you play just one more year? And, I very much think that that's 60-40 going to happen now. I really do.
If he actually does play this season, he'll be 47. Mm-hmm. I think he'll be tied or maybe close to George Blanda's record for oldest starting quarterback.
Yep. And Blanda did it, though, in spot starts. It wasn't a full 14-game schedule.
Correct. Yeah, George Blanda was a famous quarterback / punter. For the kicker for the Raiders. Yep. And
late 60s, early 70s. He
Yeah.
was the one of the tying figures between the late 60s Raiders greatness, and he stayed long enough that he kind of touched the early 70s greatness, kind of like Bob Lilly, how Bob Lilly was able to be part of, two really. But yeah, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Part of me is, I mean, I really think they have a good team.
Yeah.
They're just young. They need to address the line issues, which I'm thinking if they trade that third pick and get a couple of first, or first this year, first next year, or first and second, or first and third, I think that's fantastic, because whoever gets that third pick is going to get either Drake May or Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Those are it's Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Those are what most people project as the top three quarterbacks, and I think those three picks are going to all go to quarterbacks. I'm not sure.
That makes my point. Why? I mean,
you don't need that quarterback to be ready by day one if you have someone proven already.
Yeah,
it's typically best to just let them sit and watch a pro do it. Typically, I mean that's generally has worked. Now there's obviously
Do you really think that Kraft is young enough to feel like he can go? Because I feel like he's kind of like Jerry Jones, like he doesn't want to have to go through a rebuild.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you get a proven starter, now they have Brissett, and he's a really good veteran.
But he has a ceiling, and he's never broke that ceiling before, and I don't see him doing it with this team.
Correct. He won't do it with this team, but he is capable of taking the hits and making some plays while they have someone in the wings. Now,
that's right.
If the Patriots can upgrade Brissett, aka Brady, great. And then I'm not sure if they would draft anyone this year or trade down and get a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Someone else that's also pretty good, but they have question marks. Like, with Bo Nix, his arm strength, Penix, is he durable? Like he can run a 40-yard dash, but is he agile? Can he move around?
He feels like Byron Leftwich coming into the league, like the same exact kind of injury issues with knee issues early in college. Yeah. Big, everybody again stereotype. African American big quarterback. He can move around. Leftwich was more like Big Ben. They didn't scramble forward. It was a bunch of bodies diving at him and him just, knocking them back and stuff. And then Penix, it's like you don't think anything about him as a scrambling quarterback until he goes and runs the 440 or the 40 that he did. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Is that a part of his game that might be kind of like Patrick Mahomes, and he only uses it when really needed in the pros, and that takes him to a different level?
That would be amazing. And, before I knew about his injuries, I had him as my number one rated quarterback. Mm-hmm. But just considering he had him early in his career, but they do slow you down. But it looks like he's straight yard dash. Yeah, he's fast. But is he mobile? Is he agile?
Yeah.
I know he's very accurate. He has a very beautiful arm. The way he throws the ball is very great, but I would not use a top 3 pick on him. It's just too much of a question. It's just too much of a question mark, and I would rather just, if I were the Patriots, to me the smart thing, which they should have done already by now, but maybe it's better strategically to do it closer to the draft, is just to wait and field some offers. Someone wants that third pick, and someone's willing to pay because they feel that they can they can be like Houston last year, go from 3 wins to division champs, second round appearance.
Yeah.
Anyway, Terry, how are you doing? And what are you drinking?
I'm drinking my normal Good Night Loving. It's too far over to. I finally.
Okay.
What?
I was at Total Wine the other day picking out something for today's show, and they had vendors there. Usually on the weekends, that's a more popular thing to have vendors there to promote. One of the vendors there was from Good Night Loving. So that's starting to get some love and notice now.
You caught me drinking there. Yeah, no, 100%, dude. I love it. I got enough for us for this weekend. Now, I'm going to change my drink, I think, for the draft. You're coming over pretty early. We got to record something before. I think I'm going to go to my favorite drink in the summertime, the one that you hate to see, and that's a little bit of ocean water slushy and Malibu rum. I don't know, it just feels like a good draft night drink for me because we've actually are doing a lot more stuff this year. Last year we kind of sat in the living room and we had a couple graphics, but that was it. Just me queuing in Brett when we wanted to talk to them and queuing them back out. This year we have legitimate things we're trying to do, and so I can't outdrink the coverage as strong. So I think it's going to be Malibu rum and something like that.
That's very responsible. I think you're growing up and maturing, Terry.
Hang on. Why did you just test me? I'm a little baby bitch. Seriously? Wow. You really do love that Malibu rum, don't you? Do you have is there a specific reason, or is it just you just don't like it and it's just
I think I just don't like the taste of it. It just gives me chills. I don't know. I don't have a bad memory of it. It's just don't like it at all. And which is weird coming from me because I can tolerate a lot of different types, and I appreciate a lot of different types like Goldschlager, Rumpelmint.
Yeah, in their moment type drinks, or get once every blue moon just to reminisce with nostalgia.
Yeah.
Rumpelmint always gave me the painful poots afterwards, man. In East Texas, Rumpelmint meant you took your date to Waffle House that night and you get some of that double covered, scattered, ruffled, whatever, and next day, man, and whoo. And let's just say both of y'all feel uncomfortable in some weird spots. I'm just calling it like I see it. But no, I didn't know. So, because I used to be almost exclusive tequila.
Yeah.
And it just, that added up to the point to now it's like very rare that I can even do a tequila, anything tequila. I just can't. I have a couple bad memories. And so that's when I switched to vodka. And, vodka's, you and I, we have our hangover times where we barely drink. And then we have those times where we drink it, all day recording. And both of us next day are like, wow, I feel great. Well, so do I. We can't explain it. I do know as we get older, I do feel it more than I used to.
Yeah, same here. I'm starting to not be able to just drink everybody under the table. So,
Yeah.
Which it has that part sucks because like to prove it to people. But the good part is I know I have to, if I'm not going to drink for quantity, I'm gonna drink for quality. So now I started to, do a little bit of research, kind of like Aaron Rodgers does his research.
Oh, really? So you're going to blame Dr. Fauci for our livers dying on us?
Yes. Yeah. It was really his agenda to screw us over. And yeah. So now, but I started liking these different whiskeys and just appreciating the actual flavor. I kind of migrated that into coffee. I started to figure out how coffee is made, what kind of grind style, what kind of light roast versus dark roast, the good and the bad. I got a French press here, and I make great coffee anytime I make coffee at home. And I have, I talk to people that also have the same interest. So coffee, whiskey, I'm your guy.
Yeah, I didn't ever drink coffee really. My parents drink coffee. They love coffee. I love the smell of coffee. Just never liked the taste of it.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, my fiance got me into the Starbucks Frappuccino. And I knew I liked Frappuccinos perfectly fine, but I just wasn't something I consistently liked. But then I started drinking them more consistently, and then started adding a shot of espresso, and now I'm up to 3 shots of espresso. So I'm getting closer to where I want to try other things, but I'm just not a hot drink fan, of anything. I don't do hot tea. I don't like hot boiling, even my chicken noodle soup, I let it cool down substantially. That's the only soup I do because it feels like you're drinking it. So anyway, but yeah, it is funny how bourbon and whiskey and coffee, or do you like cigars?
No, I've never really smoked. So I don't know that's something you don't inhale. You just keep it the smoke in your mouth for the flavor and then exhale. You don't actually inhale the smoke.
I don't get what the point of that is.
Flavor, I guess. But I was told that whiskey and cigars go hand in hand. It's just a marriage made in heaven, but I just never felt the need or want to have a cigar. I like the small cigar. I've been to cigar shops and just sipped on whiskey while I had friends smoke cigars.
Yeah.
But
have you ever wanted to do meth?
No, I've never had the urge or desire.
Oh, so in East Texas, when you graduate, you get that.
Oh.
you get one rock, and they're like, "Go." You get this one time, It's like it's like how the Mormons, they let the kids go for 1 year. They can go and be, or no, it's Amish.
Amish, yeah.
Amish, they can go for 1 year. I mean, it's like literally encouraged. Go out and live the world how you want. And then, if you like, that's what you like, go do it. If not, you come back to us. Once you come back, 100%. So that's how it is in East Texas. You try it one time, and if you're done, okay, we'll come back to their fold. If you're not, just go live by the lake there. We'll take care of you.
I just can't believe you. I really don't believe that.
All right, we'll take your crown. Oh, by the way, you're going to be meeting the after 13 years of our relationship, though. You're finally meeting my parents.
The
have dinner with my parents.
platonic friendship relationship.
Yeah, platonic friendship. I've met your parents at different times.
Mm.
Well, not your mom. I've only met on the phone, actually.
Oh yeah.
She used to talk back in the day when we talked Cowboys and stuff. Then I met your dad a couple of times. So, but anyway, yeah, that's East Texas. Hey, that's what we do here on the Happy Hour. We go weird places. Speaking of weird, I just feel like I did an old school FM turn, like Pinky in the Butt. Speaking of weird, let's go over to Orenthal James Simpson.
Oh boy.
O.J. Simpson passed away last week, 76 years old. We all know, even if you weren't even alive at that point or cognizant of it, everybody now knows what that was. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But I honestly was like, part of me is like, is he, or is he trying to finagle his way out of the debts and stuff that, we're eventually kind of starting to crush on him as he starts thinking about his family and they're going to be tied up in it. So maybe if he dies, he can move some money, that kind of stuff. I'm a conspiracy theorist too. I'm not goofy though. I mean, I don't take it more than just a thought and hey, that's fun to talk about this for a second, but that wouldn't shock me if that was a thing.
I mean, it was over $33 million. So it's one of those, I mean, it's not like it's not ever happened before.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of where conspiracy theories get their
birth.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So, I think he's dead. I mean, prostate cancer is prostate cancer.
So when you're a football historian, and you were old enough to know about it, but not really. Like in 1994,
I remember all that. Oh yeah,
you were watching and everything.
Because like I told you, 93 is when I really started getting into sports in general.
Yeah,
and then the very next year, of course, that happened. Sorry, fly.
And that was a big sports day in general, in of itself. Before all that happened.
Yes, but you remember the Bronco chase on the highway?
Oh yeah.
So everybody knows about that, mainly because stuff was cut. Like you were watching a show and it was cut to the high speed chase, not really low speed chase. Al Callens wasn't like driving like 100 miles an hour, but
no.
Yeah, I didn't realize this, that Al Callens grew up in San Francisco with OJ. They both went to USC, both played for the Bills together. I didn't realize that part when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I think even somebody like me who had known the name, of course, knew who OJ was, and not only because of football, but because he was in one of my favorite movie franchises, Naked Gun and everything, and him just being around football and being a fun guy at the time, except for when he tried to do Monday Night, that was bad. But other than that, he was pretty fun and entertaining and all that. But I knew of them. I didn't know the whole connection. I remember that being that's an interesting thing, But I have a funny thing to talk about that special night, June 17th, the day before my birthday, by the way.
Yes, I know. It's on my list. I'll get you something.
I didn't see a thing. I didn't watch 1 second of it.
Let's see. You would have been, 19? Or no, 18 going on 19. So what happened? Why didn't you watch it?
I'll tell you the story. So I was married to my first. She was pregnant. We lived up here in Dallas. This is the first time I moved up to Dallas. Lived off of 635 in Jupiter, an apartment complex. I worked at a tire store, Discount Tire, in the management trainee program. And basically it was 16 hours of tire work a day, and it was in the middle of June. And I would just started. So in that first month, you literally couldn't say no to the hours. You worked what they told you. And then you worked 16 hours. It's kind of part of their whole, let's test them stupid stuff. But anyway, and so my parents were coming up. I don't know if my dad, he said he might join the chat. I don't know if he's listening, but they came up for a little birthday celebration, and Liz was pregnant. Timber was going to be born just a couple months later. We were about to move. We knew the apartment and all that. Just everything happened. And so I get home from after working a 16-hour shift and fell asleep on the bed. Next thing I know, it's Saturday morning, and my parents and Liz are talking about it. And then it just, started gathering information. And this is pre-internet. So I'm having to check, I think we had basic cable. So CNN, back when it was just CNN giving news, and it was a big part of the news. But if you didn't turn it on at the right time, you had to wait till it got back around to it. And I remember doing that Saturday till finally getting all the news.
Speaking of news, man, that is such a good point you just made about CNN, them and Fox and all of them. I'm not political or anything. No, I'm just not political.
Yeah.
You see how like news has diverged to entertainment.
Yeah.
And then you kind of see it.
Hey, this is part of that. O.J. Simpson, this, and also his trial.
Yeah.
Now, as little as I was on that night when his trial started, I watched every day, because at that time, my daughter was a couple years old, and in early 90s, this is where you didn't afford childcare. So the one parent worked in the daytime and one parent worked overnight. And so that's what we did. And my daughter's mom worked during the day as a pharmacist, and I worked at night doing security. And so I had to keep myself up for long periods during the day because my daughter was up. I could only sleep when she slept. And so, man, I was tuned in every day on the OJ trial. It captivated me. That and the Timothy McVeigh, the bombing and Oklahoma City bombing, those are the two things I remember early 90s for me, working overnight and being at home during the day, just watching hours and hours of.
McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bombing, that was how I learned why you do flags half-staffed during tragic events. That was because don't make fun of me. I was in 5th grade. And
I know.
I was in a school patrol.
What's that?
And it's kind of like an honors student gets invited to this thing where you patrol the street area. You do the little flag.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So part of our responsibility.
How many times did you get your ass kicked after doing that?
I was still bigger than most kids, and I liked sports.
It's nice when it's like that. You get to be the nerd, be like, "Come on, motherfucker."
Yeah, I was.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, that's how I learned about the flag half staff. Why don't we just raise it all the way up? And then someone had to sit me down and explain it to me, because I was kind of like a leader for this.
Yeah.
Shut up. And
I did Boy Scouts. I didn't make it up to Boy Scouts. I did Cub Scouts and then stopped. Went to the Boy Scout thing, and at that point it just wasn't for me anymore. But I did Cub Scouts and loved it, man. I did Dare. I did all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty cool. I didn't
dress up like a fake policeman like you did.
See, I knew it. But yeah, so someone sat me down and taught me that.
Yeah, about that.
And then with the NBA finals, I just said what I was about to say. I was watching the finals, Knicks versus Rockets. They cut it to the chase, to the high speed chase. I think that's what a lot of people remember, because that was the first finals without Jordan. Like, Jordan had just retired the prior season to take up baseball. So it's kind of a wide open NBA season. No one knew who was going to make it to the finals. And then you see Patrick Ewing and Hakeem Olajuwon. Like, okay, these two guys probably never would have been here in this place.
Yeah.
And so, it was 7-game series. It was a great series.
Also, and again, I didn't see it that night. I fell asleep, but I've watched the 30 for 30 about it. Let's not forget NBC. That was the company that Simpson worked for. Mm-hmm. Still at that moment when all this is happening, and so they don't know what to say on the air. Like, normally you would have a running comment like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy. This is happening." 3-pointer right there for John Starks. Man, why do you think OJ? They would talk about it, but NBC just acted like it wasn't happening. in the broadcast. It would be, they'd go like, we're going to go back to the NBC for this live breaking news. And then they'd come back and they just go right to the game. They wouldn't give their opinions. And it's because they all were like, this is our friend. What are we,
Yeah, for people that didn't see it live, you have to think about the perception of OJ 30 years ago. He was a squeaky clean, smiling, fun-loving guy that everybody liked, no matter what your age or your race was.
Yeah.
He kind of just connected to a lot of different people. And he had this perfect image, and then you hear what happened. It was tragedy. You don't know, like a lot of it doesn't make any sense to you. And then you see the high-speed chase. And then months later, in January of '95, you see the trial, and all those people became famous. Lance Ito, Marsha Clark,
Chris Darden.
Yeah, Darden, Christopher Darden, Ronald Furman, the detective.
Mark Furman,
sorry. And Cato Kalin?
Cato Kalin was hot for a hot minute. And then let's be honest, all of that, which was oddly kind of early reality TV, all that begat the Kardashian.
I was just about to say, because one of the lead attorneys was Robert Kardashian.
And that kind of threw all of them. And he was also, the ex-wife was married to Bruce Jenner, who's now Caitlyn Jenner, who was married to Bruce Jenner. And people, it's hard to explain how big of an icon Bruce Jenner was at one point in America. I mean, he is one of the... I still think he's a track and field Mount Rushmore. When you think of U.S. stars in track and field, Bruce Jenner's, he might even be number one. And so, him being married, it was just you're right, that begat that. And so in an odd way, a reality show created the world of reality that we live in now, and the reality shows that we live in now.
Yeah. Obviously Robert Kardashian is not the one but Robert, the name Kardashian, everybody knows 30 years later. No one would have ever thought that. But obviously they use that name.
And they've been around long enough now. They're talking about they're now a classic cultural icon.
Essentially, think about Kim inspiring a lot of women to get, a certain surgery, those BBLs.
Does anybody not remember when I love these? This is we've been waiting for a happy hour like this. This is the first time we haven't had oh my God, breaking news. So we get to kind of stretch our legs.
And we have a run sheet, but
sure
we knew we were going to talk about
we around here somewhere.
We knew we were going to talk about Simpson.
Yeah,
that's just
and all this ties into it. But dang, I forgot what I was going to say now. It just got me completely blown off course of where I was going with that. But no, it's just. It's funny though when you think that they've been themselves 20 years and there are part of what we're doing on YouTube is a birth of that, because people then started saying, well, hey, there's this platform, I can turn the camera on myself and we can do things from blogs, vlogs, all that, to stuff like we do where we do current content, but we also all the stuff, all of this. O.J. Simpson, 1994, basically you could say was the fire that lit that match and started all that process, because it grabbed America. I can still remember to the point that when he was found innocent, I can remember I was at a McDonald's in my hometown grabbing some food. This was, might have been Timber's first time going to see her, going into Marshall. She's two. It's right. It's literally the day after. And I grabbed the food because the drive-thru was too long. So I grabbed the food and I turned the thing to walk out. And right where the way it was built in Marshall, there was one of those circle ones right next to the door. And it was three black guys. And one of them looked and said, "What do you think about this?" And I'm like, about what? And he goes, "They found innocent." And I just, real quick, I was like, I don't care. I didn't. I was enthralled, but I didn't really care. But it just one of those that later on that night, I was like, wait a minute, that was kind of I just realized that was kind of a race to race. Oddly, why did you ask me specifically? And what if I would have been like, oh, that some bitch shouldn't have, anyway, it was just a weird time. And so, but it grabbed the nation, man. It grabbed the nation. It's a, where were you? That's why I knew I was asleep that night. I know I missed it, but it's that 9/11 and things like that. That's definitely up there with 9/11 and the Challenger for me in my era.
Just big live events that happen. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, that struck up. I mean, I was a little bit younger, but I remember it being a hot topic in school. I had just started sixth grade when the verdict was dropped, and it was just a lot of kids. I mean, we're all figuring stuff out. Things are growing. We have all these emotions now that we can't process.
I think we're going to a different case than you are, buddy. We're talking about OJ, not the rapist.
No.
What?
Yeah, it was just a different mindset. Like no like
Yeah.
they see this guy get innocent and like yeah, he might have been guilty, but I can't really admit that from my perspective.
Well,
And
I mean, honestly, as a black guy,
yeah,
were you, and I know you're a kid, but were you happy that he was found innocent, or did you care? Again, this might be before you even started really embracing what was going on, race around you and into your life and stuff.
I think at that age, I think I saw a little bit of injustice. Just if I remember, like Rodney
Just
King,
enough.
just enough to where I'm like, you know what, this is a make do for
Yeah, I
this
got you.
injustice or this injustice, without like thinking about, oh wait, two people died.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm not trying to be sanctimonious and on our soapbox, but that is the thing that has always been lost in all this is two people died, to the point that where, and I love Family Guy, but to the point where like Ronald Goldman gets made fun of in a time frame. There was a time frame in the early 2000s where Saturday Night Live did a skit, and if you don't know Ronald Goldman, or that's the dad, right? Wasn't his name Ronald?
Goldman, I think, was Nicole's friend from
Yeah,
work.
no, I'm talking about the dad. His dad's the one that kind of became the face of all this after.
Oh yes.
I remember he had the big mustache, and even like I said, in the early 2000s, that became a cultural joke. Not to make fun of him, it was something that people, hey, remember 10 years ago? And I remember Family Guy has a couple of those where like one of them, and it's a funny bit, his mustache keeps growing each time they cut back to him in the cartoon. And so even somebody that lost their son, truly, and not that Nicole wasn't innocent, but he was truly, truly an innocent, then it just, people were making fun of him. That just, you knew that it was always only about OJ.
Yeah. It was very, I mean, enough time had passed where I could actually enjoy the episode, the OJ episode you're talking about with Family Guy. It was it was still one of those shows where you're like, oh, should they really be talking about this? I think it was maybe 10, 15 years later, but it still felt kind of...
It's the South Park episode about AIDS.
22.3 years, yeah.
And I have no problem with that. You and I have a dark humor. I think in today's world, you have to get by with a little bit of a dark humor and a tongue firmly in cheek and all. But the point was, it was only about OJ. Now, it's the question that always has to be asked if this gets brought up. Do you think he did it? If you don't, what is your plausible belief that it wasn't him?
I mean, I'll be honest. He probably, I'm pretty sure he did it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, his only saving grace was an excellent defense team. Robert Kardashian was great, but it was really Johnny Cochran that kind of saved him. That whole glove fitting.
Nobody ever going, wait a minute, OJ's wearing a glove over his hand and then another skin tight glove. Maybe take that second glove off. That's like the Dez Bryant. Nobody ever talked the fact that Dez Bryant, the ball never actually touched the ground on the no catch against Green Bay. Go back and look, everybody. It never touches the ground.
Yeah.
It stays in the crook of his arm. I never understood that. That's the other one. Why didn't anybody in the moment or years later go, wait a minute, why didn't they just have him take off the glove to keep it, DNA clear?
And then Mark Furman.
That hurt.
That really hurt the prosecuting team. That's just you couldn't overcome that. That was just, it almost seemed like it was, oh, he's just trying to screw him over now. Yes. And people still loved OJ at the time. So he was very beloved. So you hear this and it's like, oh, okay. You're gonna sway the court, the people that are, listening on the trial and all that. But man, that's you just have to live in the moment to really understand all the emotions that were involved in that trial. But yeah, like we said, Nicole Brown, Simpson, and Ronald Goldman died, and there's still no justice for it. And that's really the big travesty there. But you can go and record the history, past and present, where this happens all the time. But because it was O.J. Simpson, it has more of a spotlight on it.
Oh yeah. I do believe he did it, but I also see a world where his son did it, and that's why there was a lot of the DNA possible connecting, and all that it was enough that's why it was some of the percentiles wasn't high enough, but there was a lot of.
Now, this would have been his son with his first wife.
Yeah, I think it's Jason Simpson's his name, and apparently he had anger issues, and he had issues where, he might have been abusive. And I told you this. I had a neighbor, name was Dwight. He was in a wheelchair, and it was a motorized cart, and great guy, and loved him. He was just a really good dude. He was from East Texas. He drove trucks. He was just always fun to talk to and stuff. And he had a nephew. And his nephew one day mowed our yard. Like he asked, "Hey, can I mow your yard? Need some money?" I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, mow the yard." And so it was, and this is back when my ex worked, and it was every other Friday was off at noon. You were working there, and y'all were both, my ex and y'all were both working at the same place at this point. And so like every noon she'd get off early. So anyway, so he mowed our yard that morning, and he knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I'm done." I said, "Hey," I said, "Okay, my Crystal, Crystal will be coming home soon. She's getting cash at the A&T. She'll bring it too. She's getting off at noon. Works up near Plano. It'll be 25, 30 minutes, about 1:00. He goes, "Okay." And so 1:00 came, and I mean, really, I heard him go up on the stairs at like 12:57. He was already there, and it's obvious that there's no new car in the driveway, and the house was right next door, and so it's obvious nobody else has showed up. And "You got my money?" And I'm like, "Well, she's not here yet." And he just exploded. I'm a big dude, and I was like, "What the F?" Like, I'm fearing for my life because this dude just kind of exploded anyway. So I was able to talk him down. Long part of the story is the day after we moved, I had to go back to the house like 3 or 4 days later. That's the move you helped us in. We took the U-Haul and all that. And so the day after I went back to the house, or 2 days later, I went back to the house to clean some things up. And as I'm stepping out, the lady that lived with Dwight, I think it was his sister, she said, "I just want to let you know Dwight passed away yesterday." And it turns out he was found on his scooter, tipped over, and he basically like froze to death. Because you remember that was winter when we made that move, because it was cold when we made that move. But anyway, I always have thought it was his nephew snapped something about that. Long story, that's apparently how Jason Simpson was. And I can just imagine that if he tried to cover that up. But at the end of the day, I think he did it. I think the moment was too big for a LA district attorney's office. That I think a lot of district attorney's offices, the moment would be too big, because that's a really just, you're not having to win in the court, truly in the case. You're also having to win in the opinion of the society and all that. And it's just, and it was racial. If you asked the day after, it was almost 50-50. African Americans thought he was innocent. Whites thought he was guilty.
Well, it was also 3 years after Rodney King's beaten, and I was also in LA. So just another thing that fell in their lap, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, here we go again."
Well, and if you go conspiracies, there's been the rumor that it was basically decided that there's no way we can find him guilty so soon after those riots. What would happen? And so everybody agreed that, we know you did it, but we're going to have to let you go. We just can't do this. That's always been a big conspiracy because of that. They were afraid, well, if he gets found guilty, we're going to have more riots and it might get worse and we're not ready and all that kind of stuff. I just think it was just bad attorneys. I don't even know if Cochran and them were that good. I think they were just so experienced. They saw the mistakes coming before the DA did.
Yeah. Dude, it launched a great career for Cochran. He sadly passed away, I think, in 08 or 09.
All of them are.
Yeah,
Kardashian, F. Lee Bailey.
Lancito too.
No, I'm talking about the defense team. I'm
I
talking
was
about
just
the
gonna
defense
say,
team.
but like, there's a lot of people from that.
Because I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
everybody from the DA and Ito are all still alive. But again, the Simpsons defense team were all older. You know, it wasn't like they were 20-year-olds and these all died tragically. This isn't the 94 Chargers. These are all of them lived pretty long lives.
Also the same year. Damn.
Oh, wow, dude. That is going to be I'm really it's like one of those that as soon as 30 for 30 finally announces they're doing something about that team, I'm waiting for it. Because if people don't know, it's just one of those just weird things. It's like Poltergeist, you know, the movie has so many weird deaths. That 94 team just had a lot of weird deaths that none of them are consistently the same. One died of a plane crash in 96. And that was a famous plane crash in of itself. And then, you know, some have died of cancer, some have died of suicide, some have died of car wrecks. It's just all these weird people that have died at increasingly odd ages and stuff.
And you know, when I was
It's
watching the
random,
night,
which is life, by the way.
yeah. I mean, 94 Chargers, when I was watching him as a kid, I just loved Bobby Ross. He was the head coach at Georgia Tech that won the 90 championship. They had Natron Means, a big old running back that was plowing through everybody. They had the 5-0 start. It was a weak conference in 94. It was wide open. I mean, them and Miami, Kansas City, and Joe Montana's last year.
Yeah.
Stan Humphries was the quarterback. He was a former Washington backup quarterback.
From Northwest Louisiana, so he was known very much where my neck of the woods.
Didn't even know that. See, I'm just learning everything at Happy Hour. But I remember he had an injury on his left arm, so most of the season he had this big white cast on his left arm. And I just remember them having that 5-0 start. They had the number 2 seed. There's a lot of stuff I remember. Like this big old tight end, Alfred Papuno. He was big and slow, but he could catch. And now all they're known
Bobby
for
Ross was the head coach.
Yeah, Bobby Ross. All they're known for now is all those deaths. They won the AFC. They got blown out by the 49ers.
They were going to get beat by whoever came out of that one. Dallas, they were just a bad matchup.
Yeah. San Francisco and Dallas was essentially the Super Bowl. That was a more competitive. Yeah, Pittsburgh was a good, solid defensive team, but they were not. They might have matched up better against the 49ers than the Chargers, but they were still not going to beat the 49ers.
No, because again, they didn't nearly beat Dallas, and this is nothing against that Pittsburgh team, but they didn't nearly beat Dallas because they were as good as Dallas. It's because Dallas was at the end of a long, tired, depleted stretch where they were basically relying on 5 guys on the field to win them the game. Aaron Jackson brought up a good question. You know, right after he died, some mobster claims that they were supposed to kill Nicole for OJ, and that Ron Goldman wasn't supposed to be there. So, I mean that's plausible. I think that's plausible, but that doesn't explain the DNA in the glove and all that things. And no, while I do think Mark Furman probably cut corners a lot of times, I think detectives cut corners all the time. I don't think he had any reason to frame OJ Simpson specifically. So I don't really think he purposely framed OJ, other than I think he just decides who he thought was guilty, and then he would tilt the evidence in that way, if that makes sense. And I know there's not much of a difference, but there really is.
Man, I'm surprised more. I'm surprised there hasn't been a movie made. There's been some good.
There has. There was the FX one, the series about the whole
series,
thing.
not a movie. Like,
but I mean, that was a whole. That was, to me, that's the definitive. Watch that. And
that series, that series was great. They had Sarah Paulson as Marsha Clark, David Schwimmer as Robert Kardashian.
That was the first one of theirs where it's the same guy that does American Horror Story, where he tells a sensational story through like the Versace killings, and he's done a couple others. But yeah, that's damn. You know what? I'm actually going to go watch that now tonight.
That was great, and you know now Cuba Gooding is shown in a different light in today because of P Diddy and other stuff.
He's been shown in a different light.
Yeah, but you know Cuba Gooding was OJ Simpson. I thought
amazing.
I thought he did a great job. I thought it was nice of them showing O.J. Simpson as a black man, but then also how other black people viewed him in reality versus how he was viewed publicly. Marsha Clark, Sarah Paulson, she's one of my favorite actresses, and I love her in all the American Horror Story movies, shows. And Schwimmer, obviously Kardashian. Can't remember who played defense attorney. Anyway, the guy who played
Cochran?
the guy who played
Was it
Johnny
Don?
Cochran, I thought he was really, really, really good.
Was it not Don Cheadle?
No, it wasn't Don Cheadle. It was another guy. He was known for other stuff. But hold on.
I got you. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that series was really good. I think the person who played Kardashian's Kris Jenner now, she was very well known too, especially like among people from the '90s, like me and to an extent you. She was. I thought she did a great job. I was really most impressed with Sarah Paulson and David Schwimmer, but then also Christopher Darden, played by the dude from This Is Us. I can't remember his name right now, but he played that character Darden really well. And I liked how they kind of like teased like there might have been like a romantic thing between Marsha Clark and Darden. Just it's more for entertainment. It probably never happened.
But that was a thing in the moment too. Like that was a thing that was actually talked about in the moment.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, there was a big thing about whether they were together and stuff. And sorry, I'm still trying to get to the cast of who played everybody. Let's see here. I'm just going to a random episode list. I'm seriously going to watch this again tonight because I love it. Sterling K. Brown played Christopher Darden. And then Courtney B. Vance. Love Courtney B. Vance.
And he was great and very charismatic and all over the place as Johnny Cochran. He was so good.
Yes, I recommend. And John Travolta was great as Robert Shapiro.
Yeah, he was Robert Shapiro. Oh, that was just a good series.
Yeah, it was, and it kind of flirted with some questions here and there that, like you say, the Christopher Darden and Marsha Clark weren't they? Certain feelings that may have been in the court. I think it does a really good job of not truly giving away what they feel is. And I mean, you don't watch that show to find out if he's innocent or not. You're watching that show they're playing it straight where you're far enough in to know the inside stories, but it's not like OJ and all them. He was telling them, yeah, I did it. Get me out of this. Yeah. They're playing it straight like OJ thinks he's innocent. And I like that. I like that they didn't try to hedge, say which way they think it went. They just gave you the behind the scenes of how it went.
Yeah. I like that. Man, I don't. If anything else you want to talk about with this, because this is.
No, I think we've talked enough. I do want to go to another cultural icon that we're starting to see happen. This is called a professional segue, as it looks like if the WNBA is ever going to have a chance to survive and thrive and not just be on the NBA teat and not just be talked about and made fun of when they do ask for equal pay and you point out, well, that this equal and equality are two different things. Honestly, you can't. Anyway, point is, if they're going to survive, it's now with Caitlin Clark, and then there's a lot of girls behind her, and there's amazing players in front of her, but Caitlin Clark is the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird exploding point for this league if it's going to happen.
And I'm glad you brought that point up. There's a lot of great athletes in the WNBA currently. One of my favorite women athletes of all time is Diana Taurasi, and she's in her twilight of her career. She probably has another year or two left. But what all those women before Caitlin Clark don't have is her outward personality. The way she expresses it is just so much different and captivating, and it draws people in compared to everybody else. And no offense to them, they were great. I really think it was Cheryl Miller, Reggie's at the time, Reggie's more popular sibling, was playing in this era. She probably would have been in the same category. Probably would have been more like a more talented Angel Reese, who also got drafted. I think Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are going to be they're just going to be on a trajectory right now. They're both dominant personalities that are very talented. Caitlin Clark's getting the spotlight now, but there's a lot of other ladies right now that are being encouraged to just be themselves, to show. And as Terry puts up the season one.
And at the top of the second half, it's 16-9. Easton leads the scoring with 4.
And that's why she commands $7,000 a year. These gals sure do make it look difficult.
But is having this minor skill worth being so unattractive? That's for the fan to decide. Yay!
Anyway, that was season 1, 1999 Family Guy skit. It still makes me laugh. I can't. Yeah, but yeah, there's them two that I just mentioned. There was a freshman at Notre Dame, Hannah Hidalgo.
Freshman at USC. I can't think of her name. There's a high schooler in West Texas. Can't remember where she plays.
And then there's this 6'4" blonde model-looking lady named Cameron Brink who got drafted.
Yeah,
she is a great defender. Kind of like a Tyson Chandler was for the Mavericks back in the day. She is so good.
You got the twins that keep bouncing around at college basketball level.
Cavendish sisters, yeah. One of them, I think, initially took an NIL deal with the WWE.
Yeah, and then the other one to basketball.
Oh yeah.
They're all now. They're both going back to Miami where they originally started.
And they made a long run in the tournament at Miami.
Yeah, and I don't care what anybody says. That's the kind of drama Neil and the transfer rules has opened up that I don't think people understood can be fun. Yeah. You know, the same fan base that gets all excited for the free agent window to open up or the draft or anything like that, they're complaining about, well, with Neil, everything changes. Yeah, that's kind of the fun of it. Like, you know, some of these people, it's like, I'm even going like, well, why are you leaving? Are you literally just leaving to go, I want to go experience something else, which, by the way, I think that's awesome. I think that's the whole point of college in of itself, in theory. And that's the way, again, it's funny, the same people that scream capitalism in their life, they want to run a communist style system where somebody isn't getting paid for their efforts and their labor. But I think the Neil, and I think it's helped women's basketball because rivalries are going from team to team to team to, and all that. And you're getting that kind of early NBA feel when it was the Celtics and it was the Lakers of the early 80s with the 76ers still being great. And then all the other teams around them that were really good, like the 87 Dallas Mavericks, who took the Lakers, maybe the best team in that Laker era to 7 games, and might have not won it if Derek Harper didn't have a gaffe that everybody kind of forgets about now. But anyway, point is, I think that's where we're at now with women's basketball, and I do think it's going to explode.
Dude, I've made this comparison. Thank you for bringing up the Celtics and Lakers, because Caitlin Clark at Iowa is basically the same as Larry Bird at Indiana. They both grew up in their respective states, went to a team that they were the only star. They have good team, they have good players around them, but they are the true star.
Yes.
Carried their team to a championship game, but got outclassed by another team that was an actual team full of really good talent. And you can only be a one-man show for so long.
Yeah.
I know Danny Manning did it in '88 for Kansas. That was probably as close as – and Carmelo Anthony did it, 03 Syracuse. But even then, those are two blue blood – well, because of Jim Boeheim, Syracuse.
Well, it is funny, though, that Carmelo beat the other one that was the one guy with a lot of other good – TJ Ford, Texas.
03 Texas, yeah.
Yeah, Carmelo, it was kind of funny how the brackets broke down. Was one side was – the superstar versus the superstar, and then the other one was more of the team versus the team. And that was a fun Final Four. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, 79, Larry Bird leads the Indiana State Sycamores, undefeated regular season, blow through the postseason, get to the championship game. They play Magic Johnson and Michigan State. The better team. They had way more talent around.
Oh, yeah.
Larry Bird did his best, but in the end, a team effort, team talent won over, and Michigan State won the championship. Same thing happened in back-to-back years for Iowa. They made it to the championship game last season, lost to Angel Reese and LSU Tigers, who are a much better team and probably, I would say, well coached, just because Kim Mulkey is one of the greatest, for better or worse, controversy aside, one of the best women's basketball coaches. Female Bobby Knight.
She's a female Bobby Knight.
She gets it done, and she's done it at places that traditionally did not have a championship, like Baylor and LSU.
Yep.
The next season, South Carolina, Dawn Staley.
Nobody was beating South Carolina this year.
Undefeated.
Legitimately, I think the only team that had an outside chance would have been Texas. But that's Texas, and Texas wasn't truly healthy, but Texas was one of the deeper teams.
Or maybe UConn.
Huh?
Maybe UConn.
Yeah, possibly UConn. UConn felt like they were a few players away this year. But I mean, even us just talking about this, and not that you and I don't follow. I mean, you and I kind of follow everything. Yeah. Like, we don't just, I'm not saying I'm tuning in to watch like Lady Horns basketball. UT is my favorite Division I sport. Well, I guess technically A&M Commerce is Division I now. So, but they're my favorite team as a kid and all that. And so, about once a week, I would flip over and see how they're doing. And I knew if they had a big game, I'd try to tune in and watch it. But we would never talk about it on the show. The fact that we're talking about it on a happy hour show where we have so much stuff we could talk about.
Record-breaking viewership, back-to-back years. WNBA draft, most views of all time, 2.45 million. And then this year, South Carolina, Dawn Staley, 10th year there, built up then this was a program that was not a powerhouse. She built it into a powerhouse, and they've had multiple undefeated seasons, 3 championships. They graduated their entire starting roster last season, brought in a whole new roster. And Camila Cardoso, she was a backup all these years. Yep. Finally a starter.
They had to replace of their top 7 starters. I think scores. They had to replace 6 of them.
Yeah, so
and they come out and do that undefeated.
Yeah, they replaced their entire starting 5. And the funny thing is, Indiana Fever, they drafted Aaliyah Boston, who was a star on that 22 Gamecock team.
Yep.
22-23 Gamecock team that lost in the Final Four, lost their undefeated season to Iowa and Caitlin Clark.
Yep, that was a great game.
Yeah, and now they're going to be teammates, and that's just dangerous. Yeah.
So, do you think it translates over to the WNBA finally? Because
ticket sales says yes.
Yes.
Everybody's going to watch her the entire season. She's going to be so marketed, and so. There's going to be alerts on our phones, all the socials saying, oh, Caitlin Clark scored a 3-pointer. She's at that level now where anything she does.
With you, I was curious to see what the tickets were going to be, and I was going to get us tickets for her here in Dallas, and they were sold out the day of.
That tells you everything.
By the way, in the chats, NETSN Live, that's Brett. I had him on for a sideline to sideline episode that I'll be putting up later this week about realignment in East Texas. But I think this is, I think 79, 80 college basketball pizzazz begat the birth of Magic to LA, and they went to the perfect teams. Magic to LA, Boston Larry Bird, the redhead, freckled to Boston.
Yep.
I grew up right smack dab in the middle of the United States in East Texas. And I know I knew even then racial makeups of who happened to be Laker fans and who happened to be Celtic fans, because I was a Laker fan and I wasn't. Everybody else on my side of the friendship were all Celtic fans, and but all that helped. It's like what I've told you about the 79 or the 70 Cowboys. Yeah. The reason they're America's team is they had somebody of almost every racial subset of that era on their team that that group could root for. Conservative America, you had Tom Landry and Roger Staubach. You had Captain Comeback. Even if you weren't truly conservative, but you were a military person, you had Roger Staubach and even Landry. Heck, as much as we talk about Staubach, Landry saw real action and was shot down and stuff. You had the inner city flash of Thomas Hollywood Henderson. You had the quiet flash of Tony Dorsett. You had all that. And that's why multiple racial groups became Cowboy fans. And I think the 80s NBA did the same thing to an extent, but it was also down racial lines. But that was back when that was okay. Like, nobody really thought of it like that. I think you're just like, well, I like
their style of basketball and you didn't really understand that, you probably like it because you're taught that the way they play is the right way to play any sport.
Man, it's
a deep one tonight, ain't it? OJ has given us one last happy hour that we're talking some deep stuff.
Yeah,
this is what I love to do. This is what we wanted this show to be.
Yeah, there's so many parallels still, man. Like the way Caitlin Clark trash talks is very similar to Larry Bird.
That's a great point. That's a really great point.
Like I really think it's a magic bird with her and Reese. They're just.
I don't know if Reese is good enough.
I really do think she is, but again, time will tell.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting with Caitlin Clark. She is a marksman. She can just.
But also a hell of a passer.
Hell of a passer.
I mean, you're right. She's the female Larry Bird.
Yeah, and I just can't wait to see. She's going to struggle a little bit just adjusting the WNBA. The competition is really good. Just no one really wants to watch it. Now everybody's going to want to watch it. But now everybody's going to see it, and they're going to be like, "Oh, there's all these other great players."
No, yes, but I want to. You went back. You talked about she might struggle. I don't know if she will. I kind of feel like the leap from. I think in basketball in general, both male and female, the leap from great at college to great at pros for the great ones is not as big of a leap as we ever think. Like Michael Jordan immediately became a scoring machine.
Yeah.
I think in female, in WNBA, I think it's the same. I think that she's so good, she will transcend and just immediately, like, not only become rookie of the year, but like putting up scoring records.
And that could very possibly happen. My thing is, I think she has a target on her back. And
I agree with that too. Yeah, it's a good point.
People
but
are going to
less physical now?
Huh?
We're less physical. I think even in female, I keep saying female, I don't mean like that. In women's basketball, like in the 80s, they were more physical than they are now. So even if they're gunning for her, I mean, all that's going to do is put her to the free throw line, and then she will break records, and then she'll do it in the worst way possible. So that might be one of those things. And folks, you have to understand what I'm about to say. This isn't fixing games, and this isn't like betting, and this isn't writing a script.
There's something to talk about there.
Yeah, but the leagues will shape the game to their stars. And so if we see a rookie year where she is getting bodied and just physical for physical sake, you're going to see the WNBA tilt the rules more offensively, period. That's just how that works. And if they do, then she's going to – I just think she's destined. I will go ahead and stake my claim. I think she is one of those it's a can't miss.
I agree. I really think this is symbolic of the WNBA being self-sufficient, be able to fund their own enterprise, to be able to pay their athletes what they're actually worth, to be able to not rely, like you said, on the NBA and other outside resources. I like it. I really hope this encourages young girls as they're going and growing up and wanting to play basketball to be more themselves, show their personality, don't hunker down and try to be humble. Like, if you're good, you love this sport, show it. And then make sure everybody else knows.
NETSN, Brett loves it. He loves basketball in general, and he loves female basketball. And I really, when I was discovering sports, it was, really right before there was even a women's NCAA. So they used to play in a completely different group back in the 70s and stuff. But Texas was the power, or one of the powers. It was USC and it was Texas. And in fact, Texas at one time had the first undefeated season in 1986 with Clarissa Edwards leading the way. And I knew that team. Now, again, this was early. I didn't even have cable, so a lot of my information was sporting news, but I followed what they did every week from that way. And so I always liked female basketball. I loved the Houston Comets, man. The Comets were fun. You tuned in to watch them because they were like the U.S. national team. The dream team is they were so entertaining and so innocent. You didn't feel like they were being cocky or they were, running up the score. They were just out there having fun playing basketball, and they were just better than everybody else by a lot.
It was exemplified by their leader, Cynthia Cooper. She played overseas. came back in her mid-30s when the WNBA was a thing, and she was kind of just like very grateful just to even have this opportunity, just to be a part of this. Huh?
Cheryl Swoops.
Cheryl Swoops. Yeah,
She was like the Pippin of the group.
Speaking of, his son is going to go to Michigan. I was going to say, but yeah, this is great. I love it. And I was texting you this weekend. I was watching the NWSL, National Women's Soccer League.
Oh yeah,
Dennis Rodman's daughter, she's a phenom. Trinity Rodman. I was watching that she plays for Washington. They were playing New York, New Jersey, Gotham, whatever. It was in Washington, sold out.
Washington D.C. or the state of Washington?
Washington D.C.
Okay,
sold out. That to me is unheard of for a women's soccer league in America in 2024. But I was watching her play. Like she was just fast. She was athletic. She was entertaining. She was very emotional. Like I wanted to keep watching them feed her the ball. And that's another thing. Like she has the personality to be the face of that league and women's soccer in the future. I like it. Like it makes me watch. It brings more money to NWSL, and just to women's sports in general. And I'm all for it. It sucks that it took this long to get to this point, but
well, you do have the biggest question is going to be how long does that growth last? Also, the expectations of the media that will cover them or that will broadcast them, are they going to over expectate, we'll be just as big as the NBA? Or are they going to understand that even a small step forward is a giant step forward and let that growth be natural and actually happen?
So good point, because think about the 99 U.S. women's soccer team that won the World Cup.
Yep.
Brandi Chastain took her shirt off. Iconic moment. She's over celebrating her winning goal. And then they started a women's soccer league in the U.S. and it lasted 3 years and they folded.
Yep.
They just couldn't sustain it. This now seems to be more sustainable. Different access to watching games, through socials and the internet. I think there's a new wave, and not just in basketball. I think soccer too.
I do think that they need to get away from the NBA and either get a Nike or someone else to bankroll them so that they can, or even, go outside of the thing and go to something like a Google or a Microsoft, something that could give everybody pay raises, could make everything as good as you possibly can, and be okay understanding that it might be 10 years if you ever see a dollar, but that's fine in that $1 trillion machine.
I think it's mutually exclusive. Not mutually beneficial, not mutually exclusive. Sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The company gets the good PR at promoting women's sports, and I think the at basketball or whatever, they get the money that can help promote and grow the league. WNBA has survived this long, and now you have the actual personality to match the growth, and I really feel it's only just a matter of time, 5 years, 10 years, where WNBA is going to become a force and become something that you and I will be wanting to go to Arlington to watch the Dallas Wings play. They're already trying to build a really good team there. And just off of that, they made the playoffs this past season.
But Arlington, they play in Arlington? Oh, that's right. They play at UTA, don't they?
Yeah. My alma mater. Yeah, exactly.
I forgot about that. In fact, my daughter took my granddaughter to a UTA game, or to a Dallas Wings game last year.
Oh, nice.
But
they lost, or
huh?
Did they lose?
I don't know. I think it was last year. Last year they made the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
They're in that dangerous spot though, that where FC Dallas is, where they're not bad enough to rebuild, but they're not good enough to keep people interested. And if you're going to be a side sport in a town that can facilitate you, you've got to be either great and win a ton, because Dallas will go watch anybody that wins. And if you think I'm crazy, go look back at the FC Dallas run. People forget they made an out of nowhere run to the finals and lost to the Colorado Rapids in that same 2010, 2011, when all of Dallas sports were actually really good for a moment. And they had a ton crowds. Heck, when we went to a game one year, and it mattered that it was LA and you had Brady Keene and a couple of big players, but it was packed because that FC Dallas team that we went and saw that year was a good team and they were competitive. And in the last few years, they've just been right in that middle. And man, if you're a side sport, you can't be in that middle. You got to either win or be exciting at least.
Well, I thought it was mainly because Beckham was supposed to play, but I don't know, maybe not. I remember that I remember it being hot. I remember us joking that Robbie Keane was drinking the water of our goalie.
Oh yeah, because he had like a weird he looked like 1995 Keane and not freaking 12 or whatever it was.
Well, we were joking like he was thinking it was whiskey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what we also remember, that lemon bar place that sadly disappeared quietly.
That was such a good spot.
Yes, it was a really cool spot. But anyway, but point is, if you're going to be a side sport, you have to win or you have to be exciting.
Yeah.
And the Wings are in that dangerous spot where they haven't quite did either well enough. I thought this last year was supposed to be some big amazing year because they they had like the two of the first three picks or something, and yet all the draft grades gave them were like D's.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, really? Like, are you the 1992 Colts that had two top defensive guys and Steve Ittman and Quentin Correal? And Quentin Correal, solid. And the other guy had injuries, but still, you struck out on 2 picks out of the first 2 picks.
Well, they did not have Bill Tobin as GM at the time. So.
Oh, he just passed away. Good segue.
There was actually, the funny thing is, not funny, but there was a lot of very big names that passed away in the 2 weeks since we had our last happy hour, since the solar eclipse. And he was one of them. He was 83, died on April 19th. To a smaller extent, he was the Bears GM from 87 to 92.
Kept them going.
Yeah, kind of kept that 85 team going into the early 90s. To me, as someone that watched it live, I knew him more from his run as the Colts GM. From
even me. I didn't, 80s were still, even in the late 80s, I couldn't tell you who general managers were, other than like the Niners, because the Niners owners were kind of like Jerry Jones and Steinbrenner. They kind of like to be in front in the news, but yeah, I knew him as the Colts guy.
So, once the Colts in 94, his first year has this incident with Mel Kiper, who was
the famous.
Yeah, famous. Yeah, 94. Mel Kiper is an ESPN analyst. He's supposed
who's still doing it to this day. We still trade his information as we're getting ready for our draft stuff.
We still believe his hair is real.
I don't care what anybody says.
I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, I love Mel Kiper. A great dude. Seems. Hopefully, he's a great dude. But yeah, ESPN analyst specifically focusing on college football and the drafts. There was an incident where the Colts draft, a great linebacker, Nebraska linebacker, Trev Alberts. He had a bunch of injury issues and underperformance. It didn't translate into the pros, but at the time, they got Trev Alberts. That was a big name at the time. Mel Kiper
in a different way.
Mel Kiper kind of accurately said that Trev Alberts was not going to do too much for the Colts. Yeah. Bill Tobin, defending his pick, says, "Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway?" Yeah, very famously, it was live.
Kind of what got the draft on TV being a thing.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. It could be anything. It really have to be a trade. It could just, or a team like Minnesota that misses out on their pick. It could just be an analyst getting chewed out by a GM. That's just fantastic. And to me, that as a 10-year-old, that caught my eye. But the funny thing is, that was a great draft by the Colts. They in that same draft they got Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison.
Yep.
And now 30 years later, his son is about to be a top 5 pick. Marvin Harrison.
In a draft that we will be doing live here on the network. As you can go ahead.
I was going to say, just going through the depressing part of deaths. There was a guy, a linebacker, or not linebacker, defensive lineman for Albany. We still don't know the cause of death yet as of recording.
Vaccine.
AJ Simon.
All right, I just get tired of that.
He was hoping to get drafted this week, and he was 25 years old. Albany defensive lineman. He passed away, sadly. Robin Gabriel, 83 years old. He was a 69 NFL MVP,
forgotten legend,
former Eagle and Ram quarterback. Never won a Super Bowl, but he was a guy that was on teams that were always in contention, top 5 teams consistently.
Well, and that's also an era that wasn't like didn't get held over your head.
Yeah,
that'll be a talk for a conversation you and I have had off the air 100 times. Is how the NFL Hall of Fame, having the right idea but overvaluing championships, has kind of created this era where like there were people that will literally say the only reason Terry Bradshaw's a better quarterback than Roger Staubach is Terry Bradshaw beat him in 2 games. That's got nothing to do with anyway. Just going off that and talking about that.
So I want to save Whitey Herzog for the end, but I was going to say Ken Holtzman. He was a star left-handed pitcher for the A's in the 70s, won 3 championships with them in the early 70s. Was with the Yankees, 78. Didn't finish the season with them, but he was a really good pitcher during that time. He died of heart issues.
He is famous for trading wives.
Explain.
On the Yankees, him and another player, they traded wives.
I never knew that.
Like, not in a swinger way. I guess it's just they had hung out and stuff. And they were all really good friends, and they were like, I feel like I'm more connected. And they traded wives. One of them broke up with the other one. They were still together till death.
Wow.
Yeah, the shit they did in the 70s. These are the same people, though, by the way, that are also conservative over conservative now. I just want to remind them, like, y'all thought that was cool back in 1972.
We had just talked about the 70s recently.
Yep. Yeah, we did, because hang on, let me see. I want to see something. I'll see if I can. I can't remember if it is.
Oh, while you're doing that, I was going to say Howie Schwab, 63, an ESPN legendary producer, a show that you and I both love, Stump the Schwab.
Dude, Stump the Schwab. I think people forget how much of a minute that show had, because it got big on ESPN2.
Yep.
But that was back when ESPN, well, just like now, just put up the same stuff every day. And so you had a moment where like 8 to 10 was Sports Center, and then 10 to 1 was Stump the Schwab. It was just old episodes stacked on. And then it got moved to ESPN Classic and started its own run there. I mean, this was a sports culture icon for all of us who are very nostalgic about Sports Center and ESPN in the late 90s, early 2000s. In fact, I've been recently rewatching Sports Night, which is basically an Aaron Sorkin show about that type of thing. And it's very 90s, and it's kind of funny in that because it's early internet and stuff. But yeah, I mean, man, we could have ESPN's one day is going to have a 30 for 30 on their own show. I know they're doing one for Stuart Scott, which I think is very awesome. And
we will be covering that. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, and I can't wait for them to do something on 30 for 30, 30 for 30 on the 2000s and the late 90s, Olbermann and Patrick, and, I mean, that's the type of
Craig Kilborn
that people forget was, for a moment, the guy that did ESPN, and he was the new Dan Patrick Olbermann, and he was smarmy. And then you had, and
then he went to the Late Late Show.
Yeah, he went to the Late Late Show.
Keith Olbermann went political.
And he's still political. He came back to Sports Center for a minute and then went left. And, that was, I mean, that's a time.
ESPN anchors. That is just overall. That's just that should be a season's worth of talking.
Oh, it really is. And I'll admit it, for me, as somebody who did the whole, like, college, quit, and drift in the world. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a part of sports, but I didn't know how. And the ticket here in Dallas, and then ESPN and SportsCenter in the late 90s, that's what got me going. Hey, this is something I want to do. Like, this is something that I think I can do for a living, is talk about sports. And so when I went back to college and I ended up dating a chick and end up in theater, well, that just helped stoke that creative side that I didn't even know existed at the time. And so here we are now, slumming it and, in inner city Dallas, trying to do a show and not get shot. But hey, we're gonna make it. No, I'm telling you, buddy, just keep trying. No, but that was so iconic, and that goes back to 1994.
Yeah,
and OJ, and how SportsCenter kind of took off from that because they were reporting on that, and so they were the channel where a lot of guys got their whole OJ Simpson stories for the day.
Talk about personalities, all those guys, R.I.P. Stuart Scott, but like all those guys, they had
Tom Mees.
Huh?
I don't know if you remember Tom Mees.
Yeah, he passed away. R.I.P. I think he drowned in his pool.
Yeah, he drowned in a pool trying to. Well, there's been multiple, but he drowned in a pool. But that he was the guy that kind of you thought of hockey in that moment.
Yeah.
Charlie Steiner, who apparently is having some real health issues out.
That's sad.
He's been around so long that people remember him as the Yankees broadcaster, but he's been doing the Dodgers for 20 years now.
I had no idea.
I didn't either until all this. He stepped away. But yeah, Charlie Steiner was part of that. Charlie Steiner was famous for the Carl Lewis trying to sing the national anthem.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Steiner can't stop laughing.
Yeah.
Again, tying it into to just everything of sports media and OJ Simpson and the news channels in the 24 hours. And now we're here where news channels and sports channels are terrible. And look, SportsCenter is not bad now because of politics. It's bad now because I don't need SportsCenter for my scores.
Yeah. Well,
we needed them for our scores.
Yeah. That was so earlier in this show, you were talking about something that related to like news or just. I think you just mentioned CNN. That's what made me think about this.
Yeah, we're talking about the trial, OJ's trial. CNN kind of got its.
Think about ESPN, how they've changed. They got rid of all their really serious, really good anchors, analysts, whatever, and they gave Stephen A. Smith the highest salary on their show.
Skip Bayless.
And Skip Bayless, who's not
around the horn, pardon the interruption, all those.
Now, they went more the entertainment route.
You know why?
Why?
Because they can put those on Facebook and get 25 million views.
Amen. That's why they bought Pat McAfee's show.
Yep.
And now he's.
I've never liked Pat McAfee's show. Nothing against him. I'm just not a bro humor guy. I think it's just I'm aged out. Barstool Sports. I know a lot of people that are just below our age group that absolutely love Barstool Sports and that kind of bro humor, frat boy humor, boobs and titties. And I'm not pretending there wasn't a time when I was the same way in my 20s. Now in my 40s, late 40s, I don't have time for that. And that's the same way I feel about Pat McAfee, but I understand what he means iconically and cultural. And like, he's kind of become the sports Joe Rogan. And at least McAfee's a little bit more.
That is a good analogy.
But at least McAfee's a little bit more tied into what he's talking about. I don't, and I used to love Joe Rogan, and I've seen Joe Rogan live a couple of times, and I saw Joe Rogan live in the 2010s when he was kind of coming back as this MMA guy who was also funny and all that. My biggest issue with Joe Rogan is he has that view of it's okay if I just have any weird view on, they deserve that view. But then you're such a cultural icon now. I don't want you to gatekeep, but you can't spread crap that just is blatantly false just because you think they deserve to have that question asked. That's just not the way it works.
I mean, to an extent, I agree with Rogan, but I eventually see your point and like just think about it. Like you step away and think about it. Like, maybe you shouldn't have everybody. I definitely want everybody to have their voice heard and have.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, at some point, yeah, if you can smell it and you hear it and it's both sounds and smells the same way, then
Well,
it is what it
yes.
is.
And the most recent that I can think of is, the whole talk about Sleepy Joe and all that. And this was a few months ago, and I can't remember who he's talking with, but they brought up that, oh yeah, Joe Biden said this, and this, and they have a guy producer, and they're like, go research it. And Joe Rogan goes on this rant about, man, Sleepy Joe, you can't, I know you don't like, people might not like Trump, but do you really want this guy who doesn't know what he's doing at the office? And then the producer comes back and says, oh, y'all are actually wrong. It was Trump that said the goofy things that y'all think. And they just went, anyway, let's go. And they didn't, there
are people on the streets that with mic in their hand, they do that same trick on people.
Yeah.
Where they'll say something that former President Trump said.
Yeah, and then you flip it on them.
Yeah. Anyway, two more passings. Steve Sloan, he was a former backup quarterback for Alabama during Joe Namath's time in the 60s.
Known for being a coach.
Yeah, coach and AD, passed away 79 on April 14th. And Dave McCarthy, a lot younger, 54. He had a cardiac event, and he was a first baseman outfielder, kind of like a utility player on that 04 Red Sox team that broke the curse.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that all the great teams, in Texas, last year, and the Astros, they're the guy that just kind of has the one big moment, and he had a couple big home run moments in that year.
Yeah.
That's a great 30 for 30, by the way. That's one I watch all the time. It's the
Red Sox one. Yeah.
Yeah. That just, you and I have talked about this before, and I'm an 80s kid, and I have all the love for all the 80s stuff, but late 90s, early 2000s. I think your 20s is also a big iconic cultural, you grab things and you'll nostalgically hold to. For me, that's the early 2000s and those things. Again, that's going back to SportsCenter. All that early 2000s, you had enough internet to get information, but you didn't have all the internet to get all the bullshit that we have now. It was
also had dial-up too.
Huh?
Also had dial-up too.
I was the first person in Commerce, Texas, to have high-speed internet.
How can you even prove that?
Because Commerce, Texas was so small that there was one internet company, and it was owned by the family that ran the coffee company that my ex worked at. And so when they were getting high speed, he literally was like, hey, I've never done this before, so if I hook it up, I'll give you I think he gave us 2 or 3 free months because he didn't know what he was doing. So we were legitimately the first home, and Commerce has only got like 5,000 people, folks. They ain't it's that big of a deal. But
I think you just blindly believe somebody and are gatekeeping right now.
I mean, he told me to have some Jesus juice, and I Make Love to You played over and over.
Okay.
We were talking about that the other day.
I was trying to mess with you, but you turned it around on me, so I'm going to move on.
I turn everything around on you. Oh, speaking of turn things around, let's talk about what's his name in the NBA that's probably
bro.
What?
But there's one more death I wanted to talk about.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Before we talk about Porter, I know you want to talk about Porter.
Okay, go ahead.
Whitey Ball.
But didn't we talk about this 2 weeks ago?
He died on the 15th.
Yeah, we talked about him during the baseball happy hour.
Yeah. Did he die then?
Yeah.
He died on the 15th. That was exactly a week ago.
Yeah. Like he literally died that day. We talked about St. Louis. I talked about, which I'm fine talking about again. Hey, I'm not complaining at all. That was one of the.
Never mind.
No. Because I don't think people understand this when I say this. Yes, I'm a Cowboy fan. Yeah. But I also, as you know, wear Houston Oilers stuff all the time. And I grew up with the Saints. I loved watching. I don't hate a lot of teams. And Whitey Ball, even though the Astros were one of their big rivals, dude, St. Louis at that time with Vince Coleman and Willie McGee and Ozzie Smith and Joe McGrain pitching and Todd Stottlemyre. And they were just just the way they played on carpet, man. Everything was a squeeze bunt. Everything was a hit and run. They were just fun to watch.
And they were never consistently elite every year, but some of those years they hit like 85 and 87.
Yeah.
Oh man,
they got their one World Series.
They got the one World Series.
Probably
in 82.
could have won more.
Yeah,
Um,
I think small ball or whitey ball giveth and it taketh.
and it did, and that's exactly, you talk about Ryan Fox had one of the Ranger greats in Jim Sundberg on. He's part of the reason why those Royals won that World Series was because of his arm. He was, multi-gold glove winner. He was Pudge Rodriguez before there was a Pudge Rodriguez at Texas. It's weird how certain teams get certain positions. They just always kind of have really, really good players at, and catchers kind of like that with Texas. But anyway, that they were just they lived by that. It's like the early Cowboys living by the blitz on defense. You live and die by it. Some nights it's great, and you just hope the odds broke out. And unfortunately for them, like against the Royals, man, that was back when every World Series just felt like something. Oh my God happened. And a lot of that's I was a kid then. There are 14-year-olds now that in 20 years will be saying the same thing about this era. Oh my God, you had Texas winning out of nowhere. You had the Dodgers fight, but it felt like every 80s World Series had some big holy crap storyline as part of it.
I mean, the funny thing with the kids nowadays, that could apply to any sport like NBA and baseball. You see these upsets happen. They start asking.
I mean, to the point now where you don't even think anything's an upset almost.
What's the point of even winning a division?
Yeah.
You saw what happened this season. You saw this past season, we saw the Rangers play the Diamondbacks. They were two of the worst teams that made it to the playoffs.
With travel today and how easy it is to get from places, I can finally see a world where just get rid of divisions. You have 2 conferences, and it's 1 through however many you think will make the 8 teams, 12 teams, whatever it is, and just get away with divisions. And I know that would suck, especially like in the NFL where, let's be honest, there's not many people that don't think about the NFC East in the first conversation of the NFL.
Yeah.
But I understand that we might be finally at a point now where it's 1 through 12 get in.
Dude, this is a controversial subject, but yeah, I agree. I think the NFL needs it.
I think all sports might need it.
I think the NBA is already doing it. Once they decided
you can still win the division and have a losing record if everybody else in your division has a losing record.
The Mavericks won the division this year, and they're not a top 3 seed.
Well,
because they're on the road.
But that's because there's 4 divisions. But I'm saying is you can be
I'm talking about NBA, the Mavericks.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Well, I mean, they won a division, but they were the 4th lowest division winner. There's 4 divisions. That's why
it's 3 in the NBA.
I thought there's 4.
There's 3.
Oh. Screw everything I just said. I thought there was 4.
No, what I'm saying is they scratched that because there was a couple years there where like Denver won.
But they're guaranteed a playoff spot if you win a division. That was my point.
Yeah, they're guaranteed a playoff spot, but I still like the fact that a division winner gets to host the first round, or in the football, they get to host the wild card round.
Yeah,
I don't like what the NBA is doing in that regard, but I understand why they made that change. But to go to your point, just make it 2 conferences, which they already have, no divisions, top 8 advance, top 4 seeds.
Oh, I mean, what I say, I'm trying to look at this. Oh, I see what you mean.
I don't want there to be divisions anymore in NBA.
If the divisions are going to be your top seeds, what's the point of divisions?
That's the point I'm trying to say. There was a precedence to eliminate divisions in NBA. No one even remembers that the Mavericks won the division this year.
So let me ask you this. I don't think, and I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying it's bad either. Again, I think just things evolve. Evolute.
You just made up a word?
I made up a word, son.
Oh, shit.
Let's
message.
We got to have a drink on the
word.
What
is the number? Oh, yeah.
We gotta have a drink on the word evolute.
Evolute. It's a word. I gotta text Encyclopedia. I have their number somehow.
Who?
Encyclopedia.
Oh,
We're gonna
but
make this.
anyway, can I finish my point? I don't think
Yes, I
divisions.
guess.
I don't think divisions mean anything in any sport anymore. Like I can remember, like as a kid, and if my dad's still listening, maybe he in that time frame felt like I do now. But like I remember as a kid, like rocking the 1985 Dallas Cowboys NFC East T-shirt. Now, yeah, I don't want that.
And you know what? Back in 1985, a division winner, if they were the third seed, still had to go on the road, which I think sucks.
Yeah, no, but I'm just talking about the just fan pride of winning a division.
Oh
Putting
yeah,
a banner up for a division. That
Ex-
doesn't happen anymore. People don't care about that anymore. Will anybody remember that the Rangers who won a World Series did not win their division that year? No. Nobody will ever remember that story.
nope, not even close. They'll remember the World Series win. They won't remember that they screwed the pooch in the last series while Houston swept Arizona. I don't know why Arizona stopped playing, but
Because they
they
didn't have
did,
anything to play for. They clinched and they were
and they decided to play in the playoffs.
yeah.
Give Houston the division, but we proved them.
You know,
Both
we
of them.
proved we were thankful that it wasn't Atlanta because I don't think Texas. Again, that goes back to the thing that if I were to go back and tell 1985 Terry, the biggest thing in sports that you don't understand now, it's all about the matchups.
Yep.
It's all about the matchups. It's not the best team every time. Sometimes it is. Sometimes a team is so good. South Carolina this year in women's national, in basketball.
Stars this season, right?
Possibly. They've started now. I don't even know if they've been any scores or anything, but
The Stars beat Vegas.
but sometimes the greatest team is so good. Yeah, they obviously do. 92 Cowboys, 93 Cowboys. But a lot of times it's simply matchups. And even you can go back to the 92 Cowboys. If Buffalo doesn't come back from Houston, I know both teams ran the same thing, sort of, but Houston was a matchup nightmare for Dallas. That Buffalo wasn't because Buffalo turned the ball over so much. And Buffalo still relied on that running game, and Dallas's linebackers are really good against the run. But what people forget is when Dallas wasn't getting pressure, their secondary and everything was good, not great. And so I don't know if they match up well if it's the Oilers in that first Super Bowl.
They probably don't.
Same thing if it's San Francisco and Buffalo in 90. I think Buffalo wins that game.
They do. No, they do. And that is something people will probably disagree with us on that. But yeah, that Buffalo 90 team was unreal. They were very hungry. They were very determined.
People forget that when they had the ball, they moved at will against the Giants. The Giants defense did not stop them. The Giants offense kept them off the field, and a missed field goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, they keep Belichick's defensive blueprint in the Hall of Fame, but it's really what the offense did to keep the ball away from the Giants is the real gem.
Yep.
And
that really shocks me that they do that because the Bills had a very high yards per play, score per minute, all that. That's man, the NFL Hall of Fame just isn't. We're gonna have to tell that story again. We're not going to now. We're gonna do it in the draft because the show that we told that story on. Because I'm trying to bring that back up to the forefront before the Hall of Fame game. Because A, I think you deserve credit, and B, if they haven't changed it yet, they did one of the most quiet jobs that anybody's ever done because you would think that would be something that would be known if they changed that. I'm still amazed that you're the only one. And I don't mean that as a knock on you. I have looked it up multiple times, and you're the only one.
I just saw it. I asked the Dolphin fan next to me. I'm like, look, Don Shula won that record game in '93. I know because of Ace Ventura. Well, really, because I actually watched the game. I think I remember them beating Philadelphia 19-14. And that might be wrong, but I remember it was the '93 season, and I think they played the Cowboys that following Thursday.
Yeah, that was the Thanksgiving Ice Bowl, and
yeah, that was, and we already talked about that. That was kind of
that'll
like
get a look back in of itself one day.
it'll be because it's kind of like the 70 Cardinals versus Cowboys, where one team was on the ascent. They played the Cowboys, they beat them, and then both teams went opposite directions.
Yeah.
It's like, it really is the same
And there's
situation.
multiple times, not just then. We were talking about that a couple other times where the team that beat Dallas in that, oh my God, that's their big moment. The very next week they lose, and then, and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe that we put that out at last year. That was kind of one of the first things we did as we started over here on this new network, and we put that out, and I really thought that would get some legs and carry it, and it didn't. And
I just want people to, if they're going to the Hall of Fame Museum in Canton, Ohio, I want them to go find that spot where they show the Don Shula record and see if it changed to 1993, because it was 1992. I think I took a picture and sent it to you.
No, you did.
And I also sent it to the Hall of Fame too. So
yeah. Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we're gonna because we're doing a lot of shows over the next month. In fact, that's how we'll kind of. Do you want to talk the NBA thing to finish up real quick? The brothers.
Yeah, sure.
Let's finish up there.
So I was telling you about this off air, but I kind of applaud Michael Porter. He's the NBA, I think, a forward for the Denver Nuggets, who won the championship last year. He is going through a lot right now. Essentially, two of his brothers, one has a very talented brother, has a lifetime ban from the NBA for.
And it was a good story until that all broke about them being brothers and getting into the NBA together. And I remember the rookie year, that was a big thing of them when they were, exchanging jerseys and all that kind of stuff.
Great player, Jonte Davis. He's a two-way player, which, as a Scottie Pippen fan, I love players that are very versatile. Jonte Porter, he has a lifetime ban from the NBA for gambling. He basically is accused of telling a bettor about his injury issues this season and purposely taking himself out of games. So the odds would be in his favor and his friends' favors. And then Michael Porter's other brother, Coben Porter, had a car accident last year that, sadly, there were some deaths, and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. And that's a lot to deal with in general, but that was a lot to deal with within a few days of each other.
Yeah.
And, they already had game one against the Lakers, and he had a pretty good game. Coben Porter, his drunk driving crash last year killed a woman and seriously injured a man. And I'm surprised he only got 6 years for that. I guess it was just
Henry Ruggs didn't get that much more, did he?
Yeah, it's true.
I know Henry Ruggs technically could come out and still try to play in the NFL. Like, he would still be in the age group that he could actually legitimately possibly make a team.
Yeah.
So I know he's not there for a long time or anything.
Yeah.
Stars have started, by the way.
Yep. I think it was 847.
Well, man, that's one of the things. It's a big thing in baseball more, just because I think Texas is still more of a baseball town, or Dallas is still more of a baseball town than a true hockey town. But one of the things about where you're at in this state, in the country, is you get kind of pulled over to the West. And of course, famously, and the Golden Knights are up 1-0 after a power play goal early in the game.
Already? It's been like 6 minutes.
Not even been 6 minutes. It's 18:37 left. I'm telling you, dude, Dallas is not quite there yet, and I think it might be a goalie issue, which sucks because they're tied to Ottinger for a long time. But anyway, Dallas, the Texas Rangers famously had a chance to switch up into the Central, but not only wouldn't do it, but basically kind of forced the Astros over to the American League, which now that's awesome. That's a really fun rivalry, but it's taken 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time now that, it's not like the Astros have just been in the division for a few years now. They've been in here for a while now. And so, finally it's a rivalry, but Texas continually, the Mavericks, it's a little bit better now. because you have the Southwest Division, but like hockey and baseball, it's just really hard to catch in all these games against Golden Knight because of the East games. They're going to be really, really late, and that's tough to get your young fans to connect to the sport.
That is a very good point. But the good thing is the NHL had an attendance record this year. So
the sport is blowing up.
You know we're on the right direction with hockey.
Scoring still at a high point.
Everything since that lockout 20 years ago in 2004, NHL has kind of done well. They did a good salary cap. They made it low, so the salaries were much lower back then. But now they're starting creeping up only because the money's coming in.
Yep.
So I like what they're doing.
And I think the Stars 2020, I think that had a lot to do with helping this NHL, because I mean everybody's sitting at home. It's hockey's literally the only live sport at the moment that's being played there for a couple weeks because the NBA hadn't quite started their bubble play, and it's really weird. I guess maybe because there wasn't enough people that know the sport, but people discredit the NBA bubble, but don't say the same thing about the NHL. The NHL bubble was even basically almost every team got into the playoffs of some kind and all that. But, the Tampa Bay Lightning were kind of like the Dodgers who finally won it in a shortened year. And the Stars.
Who did they beat?
The Stars.
No. Who did the Dodgers beat for the World Series?
Oh.
Also a Tampa Bay team. The Rays.
Tampa Bay. Their second time into the World Series, and both times they just had bad luck at who they played. But anyway, point is I think that the Stars grabbed a lot of people who were just kind of sitting around looking for something to watch. And like I remember they had their little something else that the Stars put together, like all the families of the Stars, because again, this is early pandemic.
Yep.
They went into a bubble and are completely away from their family. And so the Stars did one of those, family, we support you videos that went viral and got like 50 million views and stuff. But I legitimately think that the Stars in that magic run kind of helped kick off people going, hey, let's watch the NHL. And then the last two seasons, the scoring has been absolutely amazing. Like it's fun to watch it. Like the Stars can be down 3-0 in the first, and I'm like, they'll probably come back. There's a good chance they'll come back. That's fun.
It's kind of crazy because it's not just scoring overall; it's like scoring individually too. Because Austin Matthews, he almost had 70 goals this year.
Yep,
which I had never seen since I first started watching Teemu Selanne.
Yep,
with the Winnipeg Jets. The old Winnipeg Jets, who are now the Arizona Coyotes, who are the Utah whatevers.
Excellent. And Temu's more known for his Anaheim run than anything.
Because he won a cup there.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really excited about all this. Like, I'm seeing new stars crop up.
No matter what. And by the way, this is just a unlucky matchup because Vegas is not as, we talk about that with Philadelphia and NBA. They're not as bad as their record. They just had all the injuries and everybody's back.
Yeah.
And I legitimately think this is a tough matchup. And I kind of feel like the Stars get upset. But I still feel like the Stars in the next 4 years win a cup.
Well, just like with the Mavericks in 2007 when they played Golden State in the first round. Like you like the fact that the Mavericks won 67 games, but as Avery Johnson said in that first round, right before the first game, Golden State matched up really well, even though they won only 42 games in regular season.
Nobody not think that Don effing Nelson would not know how to beat a Maverick team that honestly kind of like this era Cowboys team where they're built to only do something so well when things are stacked in their advantage. And they didn't know how to respond. And if you ever talk about all this again, Noe, we'll find a new co-host. That year broke me like the Rangers did with basketball. No, no, it really did. Like, cause it was just like, everything, like you just knew it. Like, I think people think that Maverick fans were stunned. We weren't. We knew. I mean, this is back when I watched, 80 games a year. No, probably 70. And I watched the crap out of them. And I really thought that they were going to respond and take that loss. And they were about to win 2 of the next 3 or something like that. And then just to know when it was finally clinched who it was just like, Well,
And
that
then
was
they
nice.
proceed to lose in 5 games to the Jazz in the next round.
Yep.
A Jazz team that was like maybe 50 wins, and it was very lucky 50 wins. They were not.
That team was flawed. And you and I have talked about this before. I genuinely believe in the idea that if you have a team that collapses, you're going to go one of two ways. You take that and you roll with it and you become a dynasty, or you become one of those almost shoulda, couldas.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if you do that, you better tear it down quick because you'll be the Rangers. Collapse in 2011. It's just, I mean, that's iconic. As great as this Rangers World Series is, and yeah, it is like a Band-Aid over a lot of wounds, that still ain't forgotten. I mean, that's still a big part of World Series history. And then what they did the next 4 or 5 years where they were the best team but couldn't, for whatever reason, whether it's collapsing in season or collapsing against Toronto. I just think once you do that, if you can't get past it, you're a flawed team. And maybe that's Dallas Cowboys' problems the last two eras is they haven't tore down quick enough. Maybe that is the new what you do in the NFL. If your quarterback ain't done it by his rookie contract, it's time to move on because he's going to cost too much.
Yeah, and then what do you pay him for? Like the same 6-11 record y'all have had every year. So yeah, to an extent I agree with that. I don't really see the Cowboys doing that anytime soon.
I think they will soon because I think Jerry's at that age where he's handing it fully off here in the next 2 years.
That might be the best thing that happens. But
By the way, I don't think he does as much as people think. Anyway, I don't think he's done as much as what I think you can draw a line when drafting became consistent. That's when Jerry Jones stopped being.
But if he has a presence, if he's doing the interviews, he's still running things. To me, that's you have to have a face of the franchise, and he chooses to still be that since 1989, for better or worse.
Yeah,
35 years going, he is the face.
But I mean, does he choose it, or is the media just assigned it to him?
Nothing's stopping him from. He could always just not appear in front of the media. He could always be Steven. I mean, think about other professions. We'll do something more recent. WWE, the whole Vince McMahon situation. Like he had to step away, then he came back. Then he was really forced to step away, and they were kind of just forced to. Typically he would be the one doing these press conferences.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And then now they pivoted, and it's worked out. At some point, if you want a corporation, it is not solely about one person. It is an entity. It is something. Yeah, it is something that lasts, like L4.
Nobody is ever bigger than the whatever, even if they're the ones that created it.
Yeah, like OutDrank The Coverage.
You're never bigger than OutDrank The Coverage.
It is an entity. It's a living, breathing
virus.
Hey,
the Stars just tied it up 1-1, 12.
Like I said, I never doubted them.
Oh my God! So this is why I love the playoffs. Ryan Suter, who has been one of the few signings over the last 3 years that have not quite hit. He's not been terrible, but
great career overall.
Yeah, but what they've paid him, he hasn't put out. Yeah. Yet he hits the first goal. By the way, it's showing that table because we'll go ahead. You and I are very honest with the audience as we finish things up. We had already actually recorded an honorable mention, but we had a lot of copyright issues because I forgot to mute the audio of some things. And it did interfere with us talking because it was over us. So we've made the decision that before we record our draft show Thursday, we're going to redo the honorable mention show. Then we'll do the draft show, and then next month we'll catch back up with 2 honorable mentions. That might push one of our big bad movies in the drink shows back a session, but that's fine. We can deal with that.
Dude, I kind of wish we were able to just air that show on Patreon because
by the way, as you can see, that's the thing. So the problem is that and this is all my fault. The problem is not muting the video. It's fighting with us on a lot of that. Cause like the Thanksgiving Oiler game, that's 20 minutes of the show. I had that video playing and I'm not having the sound. I mean, having the sound on for 20 minutes, it's us fighting them. You can't understand us. And so I just having to deal with that and copyright issues. I just made the decision, like, we'll just redo it. And then if that one gets enough issues, we can put it up on Patreon. By the way, that's what's scrolling down at the bottom for unedited versions of Bad Movies and a Drink and certain OutDrank the coverages. We're starting a new Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OutDrank the coverage. We know it's going to take a while to build that, but we just kind of want to put that there. We're also going to have maybe a Noe's fantasy football tips. Might have a fantasy football league show where all we do is talk about the results on that. If enough of the people joining the league will do Patreon, we're going to figure out something to do with that. But I think we're kind of done because you and I got a lot of stuff to talk about over the next, 7 days.
Oh, yeah. Plenty. We got the draft, the reaction to the draft. We're only covering the first round on Thursday, but we still got a 2nd through 7th rounds, whole day of Friday and Saturday. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I guess I'll be seeing you Thursday. We're gonna have a lot of fun, man.
Yes, sir. We'll see you Thursday. Again, you can find us on YouTube at L4 Media Company. Find us on Facebook. Just type in OutDrank the Coverage. Email us odtcshow@gmail.com. And until next time, he's intern Noe. I'm Terry Bennett, and this is my favorite song of all time now.